Hi, I'm Mimi Chan. Welcome to Culture Chat. Thanks for joining the conversation. It's the first new episode of 2021. Naturally, I'm kicking off the season with the one and only Greg Rucka. Despite the chaos in the United States, we were able to find some bright spots to discuss, like the upcoming inauguration, hope for the Senate, impeachment, and Ted Lasso. Greg shares his process for writing through the mixture of emotions and upcoming projects such as Lazarus, Black Magick, and The Old Guard. After the holiday break, it was great to chat with Greg again, and I look forward to our future conversations, which will be a little bit more sporadic due to scheduling. However, stay tuned for more of the Mimi and Greg show this year. For those that don't already know, Greg Rucka is a New York Times best-selling author of hundreds of comics and nearly 24 novels. He is also the writer for the hit film The Old Guard, starring Charlize Theron. I'm loving these conversations and hope you are too. If you are, please rate my podcast on your platform of choice and share it with others. If you would like to support with a donation to help keep this podcast going, you can become a patron of the show by visiting my website or patreon.com/SifuMimiChan. For comments or suggestions, email me at mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now, on with the show. Hello. Happy New Year, Greg.
Happy New Year, Mimi.
Oh, not sure how new it feels.
We hope. It's relatively new.
Yes.
I guess today's the 14th. So I guess that was a good That was about a 3-4 week break.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a major hiatus break for us, being that we were on this like gung ho nonstop action every week thing for quarantine. It was no joke. So
yeah.
It's an impressive portfolio we've got now. Like you said, one episode, this will be an interesting study for someone to look back and hear all the current events.
Like, exactly.
We
just
couldn't even keep up.
Yeah, we didn't do it for ourselves. We did it for some unnamed, student who will be studying, early 21st century politics and, digital media.
Absolutely. Like we are that way. We're very selfless. It's always for others.
Exactly. We're givers.
We're givers. It's just our nature.
Yeah.
Well, we're picking up from where we left off. Of course, it was like, okay, we're going into this whole new year with some hope. Obviously, we're hoping we can get to the inauguration. I mean, we're still like 6 days out, but being that
it'll happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. I mean, this is the thing. It's the plane's already in the air.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a question of how ugly and bumpy the flight's gonna be. But it's not gonna be stopped.
Right.
The absolute worst case scenario, right, still doesn't mean that Biden is not president.
Right. Yes, this is true, which is the hope that I hold on to of, okay, well, no matter what, come 120, this machine gets reset in a sense, and then we got the Senate.
Well,
which is huge because
it resets or it doesn't. No, I actually didn't. And
that was
And again, I can't remember if it's my friend Eric Troutman or my friend Gareth who says who called them the gang that couldn't coup straight. I mean, it's amazing to me just from a level of sheer, you know how, like when you watch Bond movies, like the early Bond movies, and
like the Connery early Bond movies?
Yeah, and you get to the beginning of Act 3, and the villain proceeds to tell James exactly what they are planning to do.
Right.
It is the cliche of and this is our evil plan, and you sit there going, "You're a moron." I mean, you were brilliant up until this moment in your evil fictional way, and now your arrogance is such. And on one level, I mean, you have to look at this through a very specific black humor lens. But on one level, it is remarkable. It is staggering that the gerrymandering, the illegal activity, the billions of illegal dollars that were poured into these things, the gross voter suppression, the dirty tricks, the out and out lies, and they still couldn't win that election.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had and have tried to do everything they can to illegally manipulate the outcome of the vote, and they still couldn't do it to such an extent it was not even close enough to trigger a recount.
Right. I was shocked. I'm going to say I prepared myself for the worst.
Yeah. Talk about them shooting themselves. You know, that wasn't just let's put a bullet in the foot. It's like, you know what? I could recover from that. Let me put one in the shin and one in my knee and get my other leg too while I mean, quite literally.
Yeah.
They, as much as I am very grateful for the incredible efforts of everybody who campaigned and who donated and who were boots on the ground, and to the African American population that made that election what it was.
Yes, absolutely.
All of that being equal, it still was like, wow, the Republicans literally, they lost that election.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
the Dems didn't win it. Yeah, the Democrats didn't win it. The Republicans lost it and lost it significantly. You know, so
I don't know. I hope that's foreshadowing then that their entire, you know, evil towers will all crumble. But I still like to look at the hopeful side. Like you said, the people that came out, I mean, Stacey Abrams, I cannot.
Well, so this is the thing you take from it, right? This is the hope you take from it, which is, given how stacked that deck was, for it to be in this political environment, a decisive win, effectively. Mm-hmm. That is a remarkable sign. And I do think, you know, look, I mean, you can see it already. It's the Republican Party is now beginning to fracture. Whether or not it will fracture in a meaningful way remains to be seen. Mm-hmm. But, you know, what was the count yesterday? 10 Republicans in the House were like, yeah, impeach the son of a bitch. Now, that's unheard of, given, you know, the rule of the Republicans going back to the 90s, which was, you know, thou shalt not break with the party. Mm-hmm. And there's there are so many things we can talk about coming out of that. We can talk about the balkanization of the country. We can talk about how, you know, the difference between the rhetoric and the political truth are stark, or we can talk about all sorts of things coming out of this. There are things to take encouragement from. Mm-hmm. But, you know, the sad truth is, I think for a lot of us, we would really like to be able to, quote, go back to the way it was before things were crazy. And we can't. And if we do, not only are we going to find ourselves in this situation again, it's going to be worse. Mm-hmm. Exactly. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance has never been, I think, more true.
Yeah. And that's the point. We're at a point in this country's history where we constantly have brushed under the rug the parts of history we don't want to learn from and talk about. And this is exactly what you're saying. One of those times where no, let's look at it, acknowledge it, know that this is happening. I mean, obviously we're gonna we cannot talk about the insurrection at the Capitol, but like I was just listening to Dan Carlin's Common Sense, and I love to listen to people that can put things way better than I can, but everything you just said makes complete sense. And it's like, never has a president ever been like, you are not my people. Like people have said, that's not my president, right? Like people can, the democracy, the people have a choice, but the president is supposed to embrace all of his
the president is the president of the
United States. Yeah, but we're not decide, United States right now, right?
Yeah, you can't decide I'm president only of the people who like me.
Yeah.
But of course, and it's interesting watching, and I take great delight in every, report coming out of the White House that, Trump is, ranting and raving but look, this is where we are. You cannot, after what happened at the Capitol, look at what the Republicans have fomented and what Trump himself had promoted and no longer you have to have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of Americans finally were like, well, that's too much. That wasn't cool.
Yeah, I was wondering when enough is enough was.
Really well, apparently we found a line. Apparently the line was armed people breaking into the Capitol to try to disrupt the illegal proceeding. And I love these fucking morons now being like, what did I do? It's like, well,
they're the victims.
An act of terror. You shithead.
Like they're crying that they can't.
What do you mean I'm on a no-fly list? It's like, oh, boo fucking who. Yeah. Maybe you should have thought that through.
Yeah.
I got
you. Videoed yourself doing it, posting yourself doing it. Like now they're the victims.
Look, and we, it's remarkable to me that they've actually achieved the level of treason and sedition and not realized it.
Right. That's how brainwashed they are, right?
Well, and it goes for the country. But I mean, look at Ted Cruz.
Oh God!
I hope to God he's had a moment where he's like, "Oh shit," because and this is why James Comey can go fuck himself. Oh, we shouldn't pursue this. Screw you.
Yeah.
There is no argument none whatsoever to be made. Well, now we have to reconcile. And the way I would put that is really, that's how we get where we are today. Over and over again, letting this stuff pass. I was talking to Jen yesterday about it, and she just, she pointed out, that Ford, after Nixon saying, well, we want to move past this.
Yes.
No, that plants the seeds. The question as to whether or not Biden should be seen to be involved in it or actively involved in it is a separate one. But every one of these people has to be investigated. Everything. I mean, if I had the power, I would turn to Merrick Garland and I would say, like, no, you go after every last motherfucking one of them, wherever it takes you, whoever it implicates. I don't care about party. This has to be cut out. This is cancer, and it's got to be treated.
100%.
Because this isn't simply sedition. There are now things coming out that are genuinely treasonous.
Yeah.
Panic buttons being removed from
the
office.
tours being given to people to show them around. Like, how did they know where to go and got there so easily? It wasn't just a riot that went.
No,
the mob.
They got let in.
Yes, they got let in. There was a plan,
and it's a plan that clearly goes all the way to the White House. So this belief that, well, we just need to move past it, we absolutely do need to move past it. What people like Comey are saying is just forget about it. Fuck that noise. The way you move past this, you don't ignore it when your kid has broken a vase. You want to move past it. You say, you are now going to be punished in some way for playing baseball inside the house after being expressly told not to.
Mm-hmm. And responsible for it. And
exactly.
There are consequences to
There are consequences. And if this is not pursued, then the ultimate legacy of the Trump administration will be everything that Trump has embodied, which is the law does not matter. Mm-hmm. That will be the end conclusion. And I mean, obviously, there's an obvious problem with that and letting that stand.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think we're in a very fragile state. Like, we have a choice here to set a precedent. It's already been too much. He's already gotten away with too much. Like, when is enough going to be enough? And I was so frustrated with the Republicans because on one hand, right after they were all condemning the actions, and then it's just like, 5 days later, they've already forgotten. Well, he didn't say exactly to go and do these things. It wasn't verbatim, or and gosh, I just.
This is. I mean, this.
Why do I keep hoping that they're actually good, decent human beings?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I really don't know. I mean, what's her name saying on the 20th? I'm going to introduce articles of impeachment on Biden. It's like, really.
Ugh.
I mean, really, good luck with that little piece of political theater. That's playing to a base. I'm going to the Capitol with a gun. There was a Gary Trudeau series on Amazon a couple of years ago called Alpha House or something. It was a sitcom with 3 senators all sharing the same townhouse. Mm-hmm. Oh, God. Which is apparently not actually unrealistic. It's like when they are in session, this is, and it was a comedy. And in like the second or third season, there is at that point, Tea Party Republican who has been elected, who is played by the woman who played Donna Moss on The West Wing, which makes it even funnier. And there's a gag where, like, one of the main characters, the John Goodman character, is like at work at the Capitol, and she is leading a tour of her constituents and literally pulls out her gun. And Capitol security is like, holy shit! And they hit the alarms, and he's walking through the hall when everything starts blaring, and he sees it and literally just walks up and takes the gun from her. But the gag there is so crazy about her right to bear arms that she brought a gun into this zone. And that was Trudeau's satire. And we now have, a couple days ago, one of them dead.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the problem is like, I used to watch I watched Veep till the end, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus was like, so when we started the show, we thought we could be funny and just be outrageous, but then it started coming true, and it was just sad.
You
no
cannot.
More The Onion. There's no more. Like,
there is. I haven't. Yeah, I mean, we have killed satire. We literally have killed satire. You cannot.
Yeah, you can't write.
I mean, there was Black Mirror did their year in review.
I didn't see it, but I saw the Netflix that it was.
It's kind of hard to watch.
Yeah, I can't.
It's really sharp, but literally the satire in it is not satire. Like, they have a tech multi-billionaire, and one of the first gags with that character is, Greta speaking at Davos about climate change. And the gag there is, I found this incredibly moving, and I called my people immediately. And that's why I'm talking to you from my underground hollowed out mountain in New Zealand and, preparing to, live in outer space. That's not satire. It isn't. Satire requires it to be a lie at some point.
Mm-hmm.
To have extrapolated a fiction to an absurd conclusion.
Oh, man.
When people are doing that, it's not satire. It's documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
documentary. Black Mirror is one of those shows where Oscar loves them. Like they make me feel too dark and uncomfortable. I don't like it. Yeah, I don't like it. I respect the work they're doing in terms of being a show, but I cannot watch them. And it's always bizarre when they do something and you go, oh, wait, China just did that. They're ranking people and giving them points socially, and they're doing
on the basis of their social media.
Yeah, and there's things happening, and I don't like when Black Mirror is becoming documentary. That's scary to me.
We had that in Lazarus. That's one of the. I mean, that was in Lazarus. I'm not sure it ever went to print, but we hit that on for just how the Lee family rules as part of the methodology, because it's all computer monitored, like exceptionally computer monitored. And we did that 3-4 years ago now. I mean, it's just,
we've talked about you writing documentaries.
Yeah, no, this is the problem. It's like, I don't know where I'm going now. It's part of the reason why Lazarus, and I think maybe in a subconscious responses, is part of the reason why sort of the last couple issues and where we are now are sort of shifting far more into a tighter focus on these people and the situation than the world, though that was arguably always a goal of the series, was to set up everything and then be able to tell the story. But yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it's just like, I'm out of, I can't make anything else up. You guys took all my stuff.
You're like, yeah, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite literally like,
stormed the Capitol.
You stole all of my shit. I had a moment a couple days ago. I was coming down the stairs to my office and I literally realized, I was like, holy shit. The timeline in Lazarus, like literally the real world and the events that lead to the Dissolution War are remarkably similar. I mean, like change the punctuation and the spelling of a couple things similar.
Right. Yeah. Switch out this name with this one. And
yeah.
And
yeah, that's actually not a great place to be.
Well, agreed. I don't envy the position you're in because there's so much writing on.
Well, mostly it's I'm not proud of it. It's I don't want to do this anymore. I've done enough.
Thing is, regardless of what's happening in the real world and where your Lazarus world and the characters are headed, it's still, no matter what, at the end of the day, you're the storyteller and you're able to tell the story, even if it's a similar story, or even if there's similar realities, and even if that's what you planned, I still don't think it would come off as, oh, well, Greg's just taking this from current events. Like, you're still going to tell it in your
I don't know. You read Lazarus in 20 years and you're not going to know when it was written.
Right.
Like, if you read Lazarus in 20 years,
like, oh, this was after all these.
Yeah, you'll say, well, this series began in 2021. And it's like, no, it didn't.
And then we'll say, listen to our audio podcast files. You'll know.
Yeah. We have proof.
We have proof. But one of your most popular episodes, speaking of what we have discussed, is how you use your anger to write. And so I ask you now because I think it's
my fury.
Your fury, but also because of all of the events that are happening and because of the content of a lot of what you do write. And as you sit down over these next several weeks, because we just discussed offline that you're going to be really focusing on all of these projects, but how do you or how will you use your anger, sadness, hope, all of it to, create in these next several weeks to come? Because you've got deadlines, you've got work that's going to get done.
It's weird. Like the stuff I'm working on right now, the things I'm working on right now aren't going to so overtly reflect.
Mm-hmm.
One of them will. There's a character in one of these things who will quite literally be able to say, look out the window and tell me what you see. And in that sort of scream and shout about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple things that are finally starting to move now that are in their own way parody. I'm working on something that the co-creator and I, or the co-creators, I should say, and I have been referring to as pulp. It's very pulpy. We're fans of pulps. And one of the things I want for this, and we're all sort of agreed, is that feeling that you got when you were 13 or 14 and you found an issue of heavy metal. Mm-hmm. That sense of, I'm looking at something a little naughty, a little transgressive. I'm doing something I shouldn't mm-hmm. be doing. Not, it's a weird moment. I don't know, listeners are going to be, either they're going to get it or I'm not making any sense. It's not the same as finding porn. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that sense that you had when you were a kid. And I think this is a fairly universal experience. And you picked up the thing that was a little scary looking. Mm-hmm. It was, there was something about it that was both, it was lurid. It was just a bit dangerous. Mm-hmm. And you were afraid to be caught reading it. Mm-hmm. Not because somebody would be, not because you were going to get hit.
Or in trouble,
but,
right.
Right, but maybe because somebody would see that you were reading it. Mm-hmm. Or know that there were naked people on this page or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And that, in its way, pulp goes to satire in an interesting way.
Okay.
They're not actually that far apart. And there is some satire developing in this as a result, though it's fairly broad in that mm-hmm. sense. I've got things I want to work on this year, and of them, there are a couple of them that are pretty much born out of incandescent anger. There was a thing that I wrote. We weren't even 2 months into quarantine, and I wrote the first script of it and had the artist, and we were talking, and literally sent the script to Matt Fraction, just saying, I wrote this, I want to know what you think, and this is the concept. And Matt came back and he said, and he gave me a great note, which was basically, this is your fourth issue, not your first. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh shit, he's right. I need to write 3 basically done in ones, and started to sit down and write them, and immediately ran into the real world stuff that was happening literally in the news at that moment. And I was like, I can't do this right now. I can't. I have a friend who is a comic book artist and who and is really talented, has a real problem drawing violence now. Mm. And when you work in mainstream superhero comics, that's a problem.
Absolutely.
And the reason why is because they were out and about one day and getting off mass transit and arrived at a shooting at the station. And they're haunted by that. They are unable to put up the fiction barrier between the realities of violence and the fiction of violence.
Yeah.
And it's interesting working on the old guard, for instance, because violence is part and parcel of the old guard. That is their selling point. Their selling point is, we do violence and you can do violence to us and we're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And the difference between, one of the big differences between the movie and the comics, and particularly the first comic series, is the first comic series is silly.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun and light.
Yeah, because for as all of the gross of the violence, Leo's style is just cartoony enough that when Joe's eye is hanging out by its optic nerve, you don't want to throw up.
Right.
Right? You look at that and you go like, oh, God. Right? And then in the next panel, it's back and you're fine.
Right. You're like,
if you saw that on screen, Marwan Kenzari wearing a prosthetic that has his eye hanging down to about his elbow.
Not the same.
No, the audience would be like, oh, God, I'm going to puke.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be, even Deadpool, the second Deadpool, went so far into that violence gag of the first movie that it was problematic. I thought in the second, it needed to dial it back a little bit. It was a little too much.
Okay.
So it's this is, as Craig went on a tangent. What a shock. But yeah, I mean, and then the thing with any writer is you never actually know what it is you're writing about or what's influencing you until after the fact. I know what I think I'm writing about. We'll see when it's said and done if that is in fact what I am writing about. So, but I will say that I am writing, which is nice because I hadn't been finding that easy to do for quite a while.
Yeah. And
I guess the rubber finally hit the road and it's like, no, you don't get the dick around anymore. It's time to get to work. So it's been productive so far. It's been
That's
good.
Awesome. Well, it's great for me and the rest of the listeners, but do you find
again, you say that, wait until you read it. You may go, this is not for me. Right. Like I have, there's a contingent of the Renee Montoya fans who we have tried to steer towards Lazarus and they're like, I can't get past that first issue. And it's like, okay, that's not their fault. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not for you. It's not for you. I'm not going to tell you it must be.
Yes, true. But you write enough and you have enough projects going on. I know for a fact there's going to be a lot for me personally. And, I have a lot of testaments to that as well. Everyone's anxiously awaiting for all of your work. But I think a question that comes to mind for me is that, do you find it easier, like, okay, well, I've got to pick up, Forever's doing this, or, I'm in Black Magick and here's where I'm at. Like, is it easier to kind of pick up from something that's already got established, or is it easier sometimes to just go, you know what, I had this thing I've been thinking about and let me just.
It goes back and forth, actually.
Okay. Because
like where I am on Lazarus, and Lazarus is I'm sure people have noticed, far behind schedule right now.
Yeah, I've noticed.
And there are a lot of reasons for this, not the least of which being COVID outbreaks amongst the creative team and things like that. I mean, we've had all sorts of and the difficulty. I'm not going to put too much. I'm not going to spin this. It's been really hard to work. Yeah. Given the state of the world, it's very hard to look at your silly comic book and go, "This is relevant when Black Americans are being executed willy-nilly." And when politicians are urging gun-toting constituents to shoot people. You kind of go, I'm not sure this matters right now. But
I can see that it's hard to find the motivation, which is why I said that initial question. It's like, gosh, how do
you on some of these things, there's so many moving pieces that it is actually harder to be like Lazarus is always challenging to write. And the issue I am writing right now is kicking my ass. We are at a point in the series where so many things are starting to come to a head, and there are things I want to do and trying to make it all work. There's a sequence in this issue that I really, really want to do, and I am running out of pages to do it in. And it maybe has to be in this issue, but maybe I'm going to get to a point where it's like, this is going to have to wait till the next one. Black Magick is currently on hold because Nick is having to do other stuff, and we had finished the first arc of the second act. So now we have to do the back half of that. And I'm going to have to resume that probably in the next 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
I have to start writing The Old Guard Fade Away. And that is really actually proving to be challenging because now we have reached a point where movie continuity and comic continuity are very different things. And I have blurred them accidentally at a couple of points. Like there were mistakes I made in the writing of Force Multiplied.
Okay. Because
of things we were doing in the movie that Alejandro had to point out and be like, that's not our continuity. And I was like, damn, I should know that, right? Leandro has put together a timeline, like a detailed timeline of everything about the characters. And it's like, thank God.
Yeah.
Because I now need to go in and print it out. So I know
how that would be crazy though. Cause you're literally,
well, and I've already
exact same people, a slightly different, like parallel, it's like,
and I've already screwed it up to an extent. So, and the problem with throwing down dates with these characters is like, and now we've got,
the anthologies.
Coming. So now we're trying to figure out where everybody is at these different points of time. Could Andy have been with Achilles in Australia in the 1820s and then be in the US during the Civil War? How difficult is the travel? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
things that you have to think about that no one gets to see, but it's such a process. Absolutely.
Right.
And I love hearing about that.
but then, and it's interesting because one of the things that happens, I find this happens whenever I'm working on a screenplay. I will watch certain movies that I think do things very, very well. And I am again watching Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
Okay.
Because I think Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is hands down the best Mission Impossible movie.
Remind me, which one? Is it the most recent? That's not the most recent.
It's the one before Fallout. It's the one with Sean Harris. It's the one that introduces Rebecca Ferguson. It's the one that begins with Cruise hanging off of the plane.
Okay, yes. Okay.
All right. One of the things that I love about that movie, just from a craft point of view, and this is the thing, right, is that Macquarie, as a writer and director, has a wonderful sense of what the audience needs and what the audience doesn't. And if you watch that movie, there are so many points where you go, wait a minute, how did they get that? Where did that come from? Is that I'm supposed to accept that solution? This doesn't make any sense. There are multiple moments where you should stop and go, what the hell? Right? But you don't. You accept it and you roll on. and you just roll, and it's great, and the character stuff is fun, and the sequences are exciting. And the thing that I love about that movie more than anything else is that just as a piece of craftsmanship, there are few better in recent memory than that movie, in my opinion.
Wow, that's high praise from.
I think it's masterful. I think
I'm now I have to go rewatch it. I mean, I always enjoy them. You know, I know what I'm going to get. I know exactly what they're going to be, but I can't.
When you watch it, think about the fact that for everything else that's being talked about in the movie and what they think is going on and so on, Ethan has a very clear and simple through line. And it's never articulated. But if you remember the movie, it starts when he is in the listening booth at
is it like a record store?
Yeah, in the record store. Okay. And he watches the Sean Harris character murder the other agent in front of him.
Right.
That whole movie, in my opinion, on one, like all other plot things about thematically, it's about Ethan getting justice for her. It is a clear through line. And it serves its characters very well. And so, I watch it, and like I say, there is an element of magical realism to the world that we accept. We accept that even disavowed, Ethan has access to all the incredible equipment he's going to need. Right? Even disavowed, or like Benji. I love that Jen and I were talking about this last night. Benji is tricked into arriving in Vienna to go to the opera. He thinks he's one, but Ethan actually is using him for this thing, and he knows. And then you get the opera set piece, which is a gorgeous, beautifully done set piece.
Yes. And
then they leave, and Benji has the car. Now, Benji has had no time to find a car, get a car. Nowhere on the screen did Ethan say to him, by the way, there's a BMW parked around it. But he pulls up at the sequence and literally goes, get in! And they get in, and you're off. And you don't ask, where the fuck did Benji get the car? Because you don't need it, right? Because in the back, right? Well, in the back of your head, when you ask the question, you go like, well, he boosted it. He found it. He's the tech guy. I mean, it doesn't matter.
It's okay. Yeah.
And I bring that up by way of saying, I appreciate our timeline, and I appreciate us wanting to be clear about, but there is a magical realism about our characters who can't die. Right? I mean, it is sort of incumbent in that concept that we can play a little fast and loose in some places, guys. It's all right. It's not a betrayal. And not every question, and this is the other thing, not every question needs to be answered. There don't have to be, not every question is relevant. And it's interesting because there are studio executives who will obsess about little details.
Yeah.
They'll be like, well, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense. And you'll be like, this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This need to justify and explain everything is like, give your audience a little credit, right? It's okay. They don't have to know everything.
Yeah, I think that's, and I have very limited experience, but the experience I have with the whole studio exec thing is that they just have the need, or maybe they'll find out they're not relevant if they don't put in their little note. And it's frustrating sometimes.
I have encountered some people who very clearly are giving notes to justify their paycheck.
Yeah.
And I have had the pleasure of working with some people who have given notes that absolutely only make things better.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's there for sure. I mean,
Don Granger at Skydance, and he'll never hear this, so I can say this. I mean, he'll never hear it. But the man has never given me a bad note. Never given me a bad note. And I hate him for that.
But it's refreshing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, thank you, because in the end, it makes you look better.
Yeah.
And
especially when you're making a movie,
yeah,
this is collaborative work. I'm not looking to have, I don't believe in auteur theory, and I'm not looking to, and I don't direct. So, but I'm not looking to be like, no, this is mine. If you've got an idea and it'll make it better, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that's how we work on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be one of the reasons why I find novels so difficult these days, because there's no opportunity for that. It's just, if I'm writing a novel, it's all me.
Yeah.
It's all me. And it's like, it's tiring and lonely.
How does it work when you see people like co-author? Is that only nonfiction that happens in? I'm trying to think.
No, I mean, and it's different. It works differently for different people, right? But I think a lot of teams tend to pass material back and forth, or will work out things together, and that is but you figure out the workflow based on the individual. Like the thing, I'm working on a thing right now where I'm co-writing it.
Yeah.
And we've divvied up scenes, and now we're passing them back and forth. And one of the things I got to do today is read the scene that they sent me and give them my notes on it. So
I always find that process fascinating, because I'm very much, I'm like, okay, I'll do my part and get it done. I have trust issues with people getting their stuff done, but that just might be from like college where no one got their stuff done. So then I had to take, so I always find it fascinating when people are able to collaborate in such a cohesive way, which is why I love comics.
But you hit the word. I mean, the word is entirely trust. If you do not trust, you have to trust. Because if you are not trusting, then you are going to second guess the motivations behind notes and so on. I know my co-creator on this project, and they told me yesterday, my comments are in line on the scene that you sent. I have some notes. I know none of those notes are motivated from a place of, I want to make Greg look bad.
Yeah.
Or I'm trying to make me look good. Those notes are there because they want to tell it as best they can.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, this is one of the reasons why working with somebody like Michael is always a joy. I send him a script and he will call me on anything he thinks doesn't work, and he'll do it without hesitation. He'll be like, this is crap. This is not good. This doesn't make sense. And it's like, okay.
I love your Michael impressions.
The thing I love about Michael, one of the things I love about Michael is he has what I believe it was Hemingway called the built-in shock-proof bullshit detector. And he's got no patience for it and no time for it. Just none.
Yeah.
Just none. And it's, oh my God, so refreshing, because I never worry that there's an ulterior motive to what he's saying.
Yeah.
I don't.
Clear.
Yeah, I don't have to worry that this is about ego or this is about the work and making it as good as possible. And Greg, you did not fulfill your part of the bargain.
For listeners who don't know, Michael Lark is who we're talking about.
Yeah. So, and I love him for many reasons, but that's one of them. So.
I'll never forget the first time I met Michael Lark, and he was like, oh, you're going to go to the panel where Greg is. I want you to raise your hand and ask, why is Michael Lark such a great collaborator? I was like, okay. He was like trying to plant me in the audience. And I immediately was like, I could see like exactly why you guys work so well together. It was like so clear, so clear.
Yeah, and I mean, he and I...
It really is magic. I mean, Lazarus is just magical.
He and I mesh well because we are not at all the same person. And that's part of it. Like we are very different people. We are very aligned in many places. There are places where there's no daylight between us. But we are very, very different people with very, very different interests and hobbies. And I actually think It is those different. It's those differences that have helped us as much as they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Michael has a very healthy regard for what the work is. You know, he sees the craft, and he takes it very seriously, but he is also willing to acknowledge it as work and is not the only thing that defines him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for a lot of us, that's hard. So
yeah, and
especially in comics.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to get to know a lot more creators, and you see that I understand much more why a lot of times once you find kind of the people you enjoy working with, why you continuously work with them, because there's that trust, like you said, and it must be very well earned, and you had to put in a lot of time to do so, but it's so nice to be at a point in your career where you get to choose who you work with.
Yeah, no, I am. Both Michael and I are now in our 50s, so I feel like we came by it honestly. We put in the years and we put in the hours.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's awesome. So, but speaking of Lazarus and
yes.
always being the number one advocate, just as a reminder, like
yes.
I'm here for you guys. Like, however I can facilitate Lazarus being on schedule, you just let me know. I'm here for you and the listeners.
we're shooting for the next issue in March.
Yes.
Once that is out, we will be doing everything we can to get ourselves back on schedule. But yeah, I wish there was, and look, we have had this problem from the start, and we were able to hit those first like 4 of the quarterlies,
the quarterlies,
as promised, but getting, issue 4 and issue 5 in, the first was that was all the COVID stuff happened.
Yeah.
It just, it started, we went into lockdown, and that just blew things up. And we're still trying to study on the basis of that.
Of course. No, I mean, I think it's actually been quite remarkable that we've had content to kind of hold us sober and whatnot.
Yeah.
I encourage everyone on rereads anyway. So it's a good thing.
Yes. Take your footnotes.
Study your canon.
Yeah.
I want to spend the last couple minutes not talking about Wonder Woman 84, but instead Ted Lasso.
Yes, you watched Ted Lasso.
Oh my goodness. So it has been like on the list of things to watch for so long because you talk about it so much.
Yeah.
And Oscar and I just devoured it. It was just exactly what we needed at the exact time.
Yeah.
And immediately, Oscar kind of analogizes everything to coaching and teaching. And he's like, it's like a masterclass in coaching after like episode 1. And he said, this is the type of show that makes you want to be a better person.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's quite a lot to say about a
TV
show, right?
Yeah, it is a remarkable happy accident,
yes.
Right? Because Apple, as a studio, and there's been stuff written on this, is so concerned about, and look at their projects and what they're picking.
Mm-hmm.
They are they are desperate to not offend anybody.
Yeah.
Right? They are desperate to not offend anybody because they don't want to be cut out of a market,
mm-hmm.
which is going to hurt them horribly in the long run.
Yeah.
But Ted Lasso is this perfect package at a perfect time. It literally is right show, right place, right time.
Yes.
And yeah, it is so well done, and it's smart.
Yes.
And it's smart with its characters and how it treats its characters. As I think I said to you, there are really only 2 women who recur, like there are two regulars, women, and the rest it's a bunch of guys.
Yeah, it's a soccer team, and
but what they do with those two characters have just vibrant, terrific story, and are treated with such respect by the writers, which is not to say kid gloves, but they're just, it's fantastic, and they avoid so many of the obvious traps. And there isn't anybody I know who has seen the show and not gone, I liked it, or I was really enjoying it. And then you get the Everton game when they go to Liverpool, and that's the episode where almost everybody is like, oh my God, this is something remarkable. This is something special. And it is. I think it is. It literally is something special. It is a show that is special.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it resonated for us as coaches and teachers, but also like just like even the fact that he would bring her that biscuit
every morning.
Like, where did you get this? And he was baking them. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, it's amazing.
They do little things.
I mean, just those little touches, right?
Yeah.
And you just,
the peanut butter jars.
Oh, the peanut.
The whole I love Trent Krim from The Independent.
Right.
But I love I love that it is also such a show about responsibility and people taking responsibility.
Yes. Leadership.
And that Ted is not without his flaws.
Yes, absolutely.
That there's that great scene where Beard is calling him out in the pub. Is a really important moment in the series. Absolutely. And like I say, then as a soccer fan, the in-joke.
I'm sure.
There are just a couple throwaways in there that had me like falling over.
I'm sure.
And they're literally just for fans of Premier League soccer and so on. Like if you know what they're referring to.
Yeah. It's just, it's super brilliant also because they're able to take this character, which you initially, if the first couple minutes, you're like, oh, this guy's just going to be a silly, goofy, okay, it's one of those, but it's just the connectivity to the character, but also the sense of responsibility they put on him. And then that he had his moment at the dartboard. So satisfying to me.
Well, and the speech that he gives.
If you had asked about me or.
If you were curious.
Yes, if
you would have learned.
Yeah.
And and that is, like I say, I mean, the premise of the show, and if you look at its origins were a bunch of bumper things for NBC Sports when they started showing the Premier League regularly. And that's where the Ted Lasso gag came from, was like, he's an American football coach. He's coaching Tottenham Hotspurs. And you can find them on YouTube, and they're funny, and you see they recycle a couple of the jokes.
Okay.
But that gag only works in that thing. So when they say we're doing a Ted Lasso series, you're like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Because all that is an ugly American.
Yes.
And their decision, they answered two immediate questions, and there were writer's room questions. This is craft questions. And the first was, to make this work, Ted cannot be unworthy of this job. He shouldn't have gotten it, is the premise. Right. But why is he actually the right person? We have to answer that.
Yeah.
And that can't be, and that answer means he can't be an ugly American. You can't, this is not about mocking the sport. And it's not about making fun of Ted. So that's one. And then the second question they had to answer is, how the hell did he get this job?
Right.
And in answering that question, you get everything from Rebecca.
Yeah.
And then the treatment of Rebecca becomes like I say, that's the engine. And that show doesn't work if you do not empathize with Rebecca, if you're not with her. And that's one of the reasons why the Kylie Rebecca stuff is so great.
Yeah, so great. So great. But they do a great job of making you empathize with each character at some point. Because at first you're like, I hate that guy. There's nothing good about him. And you're like, oh, he's pretty much abused all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you
you're
go,
like,
oh, okay. And so that's missing in so many shows now and movies. There's no connectivity with the character. Like you just don't even care if they died in the plane, it wouldn't matter, right? And
it goes back
to a mistake.
They respected all of their characters. They let them have their moments of humanity, except for really one. And you shouldn't like Rupert.
Right.
Now, I am curious if come second season, we're going to learn a little something about Rupert.
Right.
But right now, no, you could run over Rupert with a steamroller and I'd be like, keep going.
There has to be a villain.
Exactly. It's like, I'm not sure I need to understand Rupert.
Yeah. No,
right?
We're good.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for that recommendation. And
I am so
haven't
glad
noticed
you guys
by now,
enjoyed it.
Please watch it.
If you can get
about it.
You can get like the free 7-day Apple TV preview.
Exactly. Just it'd be worth
it. Literally all you needed is you need it for a day. You'll binge watch this thing and then cancel it. But it really is worthwhile. So.
Absolutely. So, all right. So that's a happy note for us.
There you go. That's a good way to go. And look, check in with me in another let's give it 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
And then we can do another. But like I say, I'm on bunker writing.
You need to write. That's what we are all waiting for. So no problem. All right. Well, as always, thank you so much, Greg. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Mimi. Give my best to everybody.
Will do.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Culture Chat and hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe and rate my podcast. Feel free to leave me suggestions or send an email to mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or follow me on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.